So just like we talked about the other day, just because the transfer portal has now closed, that doesn't mean our conversations around the transfer portal are going anywhere. And today, we have got a lot we've got to discuss, starting with several big name players from Michigan State entering the transfer portal. And today, we need to talk about what this means. After that, we've got to turn our attention to Boulder, where Coach Prime in Colorado continue stacking wins in the transfer portal, this time for a former 5-star, something we've got to break down. But before we can, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Were you surprised that Michigan State wide receiver Keon Coleman entered the transfer portal? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions seem small. They are massive to content creators such as myself, and we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this, and let's start with the transfers that hit the portal from Michigan State, where the other day they had 3 big-name prospects enter the portal, and college football took note, as Payton, Thorne, Keon Coleman, and cornerback Charles Brantley all entered the portal. Now, important to note that since that time, Charles Brantley has taken his name out the transfer portal, proving that just because you enter into the transfer portal does not mean it's a foregone conclusion that you are going to be leaving the institution you're currently at. We've seen time and time again guys enter the transfer portal and ultimately stay at the institution they're currently at. So that's going to be something we have got to watch going forward. But for Payton Thorne and Keon Coleman, I have no doubt that several institutions are going to be contacting both of those individuals. And we can start with Payton Thorne, because per reports, Auburn is already in contact. And to me, this makes perfect sense. Auburn just had a quarterback hit the transfer portal. They're short on depth at that position, and Thorne has experience in college football. So it makes complete sense for me for Hugh Freeze to reach out to Payton Thorne, gauge his interest, and if they can get that in, that'd be a good win for Auburn. Getting more depth in that room, more experience, and ultimately I think that could be something conducive to success for the Tigers. But the guy that I think every institution in the nation is going to be after is Keon Coleman. He stands 6'4", 210 pounds per ESPN, and was just shy of 800 receiving yards on less than 60 receptions, averaging over 13 yards per reception. This guy right here has big playability written all over him. He's the type of wide receiver that can go up and high point a ball. He can be more physical than a defensive back. He can create opportunities that otherwise you wouldn't have. And because of that, I have no doubt that Michigan State is going to be doing everything in their power to try and keep Coleman on the roster and as a Spartan. But I have no doubt that every institution out there that has a need at wide receiver is going to be contacting him. And one institution that really stands out to me is LSU, and the reason is quite simple. It's because Coleman comes from Louisiana, and LSU's coming off of a really successful year, which has many wondering in college football, what are they going to be able to do in year 2 with Brian Kelly? But make no mistake, LSU is not going to be the only college after Keon Coleman, and as I just stated, I think multiple institutions are going to be hot on the trail of a very talented wide receiver. But now we need to turn our attention from the Big Ten to the Pac-12 as Colorado continues stacking wins, this time for former 5-star Sav'ell Smalls, who'd committed to Washington out of high school. Now, this is a very talented individual who unfortunately never really got it going at Washington the way many people expected him to. And we've talked about this time and time again, that the transfer portal can allow a player a change of scenery, and in some instances, a change of scenery can be real helpful to these guys. So whenever you look at this, what does this mean for Colorado going forward? Well, I love the depth they're trying to create at that outside linebacker edge position. And whenever we look at this, there are certain names they got out the transfer portal that really moved the needle to me. One such name in particular is Jordan Dominic, someone who's had respectable numbers his entire college football career, but once he got to Arkansas, he really burst on the scene last year, and now he takes that experience to Colorado. And now when you look at this, if you compare Dominic with someone else on the other side that a defense has to pull resources towards, it's only going to free up opportunities for your interior guys, your linebackers, and in theory, Jordan Dominic, someone who showed last year they have the ability to wreak havoc for opposing offenses. So whenever I look at Colorado defensively, one of the position groups I'm most interested in is that defensive front, and we can classify them all together. Your outside linebackers, your interior guys, everybody who's going to line up on the line of scrimmage, that's what I'm really intrigued at for Colorado. Whenever I look at Colorado's secondary, there are so many names we can talk about that are going to generate excitement. Whenever I look at their linebacking core, I think getting in Demoy Kennedy was a massive win for the Buffaloes. Demoy Kennedy was just outside 5-star range in his respective recruiting class and was really talented for Alabama. Someone that when they had an issue at running back depth, they actually asked Demoy Kennedy, hey, would you mind stepping in? And he did so. That's the athleticism he possesses. So whenever you look at this, if you're able to continue stacking wins along that defensive front, it's going to be conducive to success for those linebackers. Because if you're able to get those big nasties up front, they can start plugging holes along the offensive line. And either A, those defensive linemen up front are going to make plays themselves, or B, they're going to free up opportunities for the edges, for the linebackers to start flying through and creating havoc for opposing offenses. That's why I'm so intrigued to see what the defensive front for Colorado looks like. But there is no question that stacking depth, getting a guy that has this much talent, this much upside, is an absolute win for Colorado. And Smalls has some experience in college football, and it's going to be really interesting if he can put it all together with the Buffaloes. The one thing this is great with, though, is they get an individual with experience and with some eligibility left as he comes to Colorado as a redshirt sophomore. And we talked about this the other day, that in the transfer portal, if you can get both experience and eligibility, that's exactly what you're aiming to get. But I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.